Anytime you're ready.
I've also put labels on
Okay.
the machines.
We're with Sealed Air. We're here today to talk about and show the proper preventive maintenance procedure on the Instapacker tabletops mixing block. Now the mixing block will need service when the display on the machine highlights the actual control box for the tabletop. And if we look at the display on the control box, it will probably say something to the effect of high pressure shutdown, clean A side, clean B side. It really steers us in that direction. It's really kind of a not broken, don't fix it type of system where we don't want to take off the mixing block and maintain it on a daily or weekly or even monthly basis. There's a self-cleaning procedure that takes place to where we really only want to clean the cartridge when the system tells us to. There are, however, these blue tips, but our recommendation is to replace those every time we change the film. And the reason being is those blue tips will get clogged over time. They're very simple to change. And while we have the machine open and the film off, it's easily access that blue tip without even taking the mixing block off. And I'll show you how to do that as well. So first thing we do is go ahead and shut the machine down. I turn the machine on and off switch. On the back of the machine on the right hand side here, there's one latch. We undo the latch and lift the lid. And that gives us good exposure right to the mixing block. The mixing block is this center or a silver colored block that's roughly 2 by 3 inches. And what we want to do to take that off is shut the valves off so it stops all flow of the A and B components to that mixing block, so we're able to take it off without having any back pressure. There's no way to access this center retaining knob with these in the open position, so it's kind of a built-in safety feature that we have to where we have to shut the valves off prior to opening the center knob, which actually holds the mixing block in place. This is our mixing block. Sometimes what can happen is what it did in this case is when we pulled it off, one of the O-rings was still somewhat stuck to the frame of the machine. That can happen because the part A component has somewhat adhesive-like characteristics to it. So it's a little bit sticky, and that's why sometimes we will take the mixing block off and maybe an O-ring or two would be stuck on this side. So at this point, this side can be left alone, and we are going to go into maintaining the mixing block. With the mixing block, the replaceable parts are the blue tip. We've got these red filter screens. That's probably the most common place where clogs would occur, as well as these purple O-rings. The purple O-rings simply go right on the outside edge of the filter screen. And what that does is it gives us a nice tight seal of the mixing block into the housing of the machine, so when we cinch it down tight, it doesn't leak at all. At this point, we would use our pore cleaner spray and spray out any debris that may be built up in that filter screen. If there was too much debris built up on there, let's just go ahead and replace that filter screen. So we want to do that for both the A and the B sides. Notice on this pore cleaning tool, we have one that has a drill bit and the one that's just a small type of a pinhole. So what we do is we insert the drill bit into the filter screen and it helps pop that out. So now we've got 2 empty cavities where next step will be to unscrew both the A and the B retaining knobs that gives us full access to get our cleaning tools into the mixing block. The last step prior to cleaning would be to insert the mixing block into what we call a cartridge opening tool. This is to replicate the pulling of the or opening of the cartridge. Basically, we're just going to align the cartridge. It's a little bit tricky. You need to align it so where it aligns perfectly with the opening part of the flange, if you will, of the mixing block. So at that point we open it and you will see that the retracting plunger of that mixing block is coming back into the open position. And we just open it back as far as we can. So you notice it's in a retracted position. Now what this has done is that's taken that retracting flange all the way back out and enables us to get into all the cleaning ports with the port cleaner. Thoroughly clean each of the areas where a clog can occur. The majority of the time, we will see it in the filter screen. So we're spraying the port cleaner spray. What that does is it just flushes out and helps break down any particles that may have been causing a clog. At this point, we put the cartridge back into the opening tool and go back and put it back into the closed position. Pretty important that when we open and close, we open it all the way as far as the tool will allow us, and we close it all the way as far as the tool will allow us. Sometimes we might need to turn it, a quarter of a turn just so it releases nice and easily. So at this point, we've cleaned out any debris that's built up in this mixing block. And let's go back and reinsert the filter screens, O-rings, and retaining caps. So, one filter screen. The filter screen will have a small end and a larger end. And the larger end will have a protrusion. As you can see there, that's going to be what's facing out. That protrusion also has a slight recess for this larger O-ring to pop right on. And that's what helps us seal to the mixing block housing. We have another third O-ring that goes right here. It's a little bit smaller. That's what helps seal the third input, which is the solvent, to the mixing block housing. If we were to turn the machine on, open up the valves, and notice some leaking, the odds are we either did not put an O-ring on, or at least did not put it on correctly. Maybe there's a cut in the O-ring. So then when we tighten it down, we know it's nice and tight. Open the valve, we see a little bit of leaking. That's the first thing I would look for, just to make sure that we've correctly put the O-rings back in where they need to be. Last thing is we put our O-rings back into the retaining caps. This would be a fully refurbished, clean mixing block that we're ready to put back on the machine. At the bottom of the mixing block is the blue tip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to replace it both off the machine as well as on. Off the machine, we have this blue tip tool that has 4 prongs that align right to where the 4 openings would be on the blue O-ring. And that's locks in, and we just unthread it. For this particular one, we typically just go ahead and throw it away. We don't want to reuse these. So I'm going to put the block back onto the machine. Give it one last squirt here, make sure it's nice and clean.
So yeah, I'm absolutely more than willing to play that.
We're good again.
All right, so putting the block back on, making sure we've cinched it nice and tight with that center retaining knob, using our Allen. And you notice when I took the blue tip off, I didn't put a new one on because I want to show you how we can easily change and access that blue tip without actually taking the mixing block off the machine. So again, we recommend when we replace the blue tip would be when we replace the film. So let's assume we're putting on a new roll of film, we've got everything open. That's a great time to go ahead and be proactive. Take the blue tip off, put a new one in, just align it with our 4 aligning pins, and thread it back directly in. It is possible to cross-thread that. So if we're finding it hard to tighten that up, just make sure that you have it cross-threaded in. Just kind of nice and firm. Last step would be to open up the valves to allow the A and B components to flow to the mixing block. That completes the preventive maintenance of the mixing block, which is probably 50% of the shutdowns that we would get. The other 50% would be out of solvent, out of film, or out of the A and B. That concludes it.